The string quartet played softly in the background as I watched my ex-husband Michael strut across my sister's wedding reception like he owned the place. 8 months since our divorce, and he still had that same arrogant swagger, that same self-satisfied smirk that used to make my heart flutter, but now just made my stomach turn. My name is Catherine Wells, and at 35, I was watching the man who betrayed me flaunt his new engagement ring while secretly planning to use my inheritance to fund his wedding. The irony would have been laughable if it hadn't made me so angry. "You're staring," my sister Rachel whispered, appearing beside me in her wedding dress. "Don't let him ruin my day." I forced a smile. "Sorry, I just can't believe you invited him," Mom insisted. "You know how she's about keeping up appearances." Rachel squeezed my hand. "But seriously, what's going on?" "You've got that look." That look. The one I'd worn when I discovered Michael's affair with Jessica, his much younger assistant. The one that meant I knew something others didn't. "He thinks he's clever," I said quietly, watching Michael pour champagne for Jessica, who was practically draped over him. "He thinks he's won." 2 weeks ago, I'd received a call from my bank about suspicious activity on the account holding my inheritance from Grandma Rose. The beach house in Martha's Vineyard had been in our family for generations, and when Grandma passed last year, she left it to me along with a significant sum to maintain it. The banker's voice had been concerned. "Mrs. Wells, someone attempted to access the property's equity line of credit. We blocked it since you're the sole owner, but I thought you should know." I knew immediately who was behind it. Michael had always coveted that house, always talked about what he'd do with it if it were his. During our marriage, he tried repeatedly to convince me to add his name to the deed. "It's just practical," he'd say. "What if something happens to you?" But Grandma Rose had been explicit in her will. The house was mine alone, never to be included in any marital assets. She'd seen something in Michael that I'd been too blind to notice. Now, watching him whisper something in Jessica's ear that made her giggle, I thought about the documentation I'd gathered. The traced attempts to access my accounts. The forged signatures. The emails I'd recovered showing his plans to use my inheritance to fund his dream wedding to Jessica. He thought he was being subtle. But subtlety had never been Michael's strong suit. That's how I'd caught him with Jessica in the first place. Lipstick on his collar like some cliché from a bad movie. "Katie." His voice boomed across the reception hall, making me wince. Only he had ever called me Katie, even after I'd asked him not to. "Come meet some people." I plastered on my best society smile and walked over. Michael stood with Jessica and an older couple I didn't recognize. "Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, this is my ex-wife, Katie," he said, emphasizing the X with obvious satisfaction. "She's the bride's sister." "Lovely to meet you," Mrs. Davidson said, though her eyes held that mixture of pity and curiosity that divorced women often face at social events. "Katie here just inherited a beautiful beach house," Michael continued, his voice dripping with false casualness. "Perfect for a summer wedding, wouldn't you say, Jess?" Jessica giggled, flashing her enormous engagement ring. "Oh, honey, are you thinking what I'm thinking?" I took a slow sip of champagne, watching them perform their little show. They thought they were being clever, dropping hints about their plans for my property. If only they knew. "Actually," I said sweetly, "I've been meaning to talk to you about the house, Michael. Perhaps we could step outside for a moment?" His smile faltered slightly, but he followed me to the terrace. The October air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and impending winter. "What's this about?" he asked, his tone less confident now that we were alone. I pulled my phone from my clutch and pulled up the bank statement. "Would you like to explain why you tried to access my equity line of credit?" His face darkened. "Going through my private financial matters? That's low, Katie." "Not as low as forging my signature," I countered, watching his expression carefully. "Or trying to steal my inheritance to pay for your wedding to the woman you cheated with." He laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Steal? Please, that house should have been half mine anyway. 10 years of marriage and your grandmother still didn't trust me with it." Turns out Grandma Rose was a better judge of character than I was. "You know what?" He pulled out his own phone, thumbing through it before showing me a screen. "I already took care of it. Transferred the money last week. What's done is done." I stared at the bank statement he was showing me, my heart racing despite knowing what I did. The transfer was there, $250,000 moved from what appeared to be the house's equity account to his personal one. See, he smirked, pocketing his phone. The perfect amount for the perfect wedding. You should be happy for us, Katie. Jessica and I, we're soulmates. What we had, it was just practice. I took another sip of champagne, letting the moment stretch out. You really should have checked the property records more carefully, Michael. His smirk faltered. What are you talking about? That account you accessed? It's not connected to the house. It's an old joint account I kept active, knowing you'd try something like this. The house and its equity are in a completely separate trust, one you can't touch. The color drained from his face. You're lying. Am I? Check the county records. Better yet, check with your bank on Monday. That transfer you're so proud of? It's going to bounce. Hard. You set me up, he whispered, realization dawning. No, Michael, you set yourself up. I just made sure there was a record of it. You bitch, he hissed, stepping closer. You think you're so clever. Everything okay out here? Rachel's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the doorway, concern evident on her face. Perfect, I said, stepping away from Michael. Just catching up with old friends. I walked back into the reception, leaving him standing there seething. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Michael's transfer had indeed bounced, triggering fraud alerts at multiple banks. His attempt to access my equity line had been flagged as attempted mortgage fraud. Everything was unraveling exactly as I planned. But Michael wasn't going down without a fight. By noon, he was at my door. You have to fix this, he demanded as soon as I opened it. The banks are freezing my accounts. Jessica's father is asking questions about the wedding finances. I leaned against the doorframe, enjoying his panic. Fix what? You tried to steal from me, Michael. Actions have consequences. It wasn't stealing, he protested. That house should have been part of our marital assets. You're the one who hid it in a trust. Grandma Rose put it in a trust, not me. Because she saw right through you. His face twisted with rage. You think you've won. I still have copies of all your finances from when we were married. Things that wouldn't look good if they came to light. I smiled, reaching for the folder I kept by the door for just this moment. You mean these? Michael stared at the folder in my hands, his bravado faltering. Inside were all the documents he thought he could use against me. Tax returns, bank statements, investment records. But there was something else too. Evidence of his own financial misconduct during our marriage. You know what I found when I started digging? I asked, opening the folder. Years of suspicious transfers, money moved between accounts right before our divorce. Investments made in Jessica's name while we were still married. He tried to snatch the folder, but I pulled it back. Those are private. Private like my grandmother's house. Private like my inheritance that you tried to steal. His jaw clenched. What do you want? I want you to face consequences for once in your life, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. No more charm, no more lies, no more manipulating your way out of trouble. You'll destroy everything, he said, desperation creeping into his tone. The wedding, my reputation. Your reputation. I laughed. You mean the carefully crafted image of the successful investment banker? The devoted fiancé? How long before Jessica's father, the retired judge, finds out how you're really funding his daughter's dream wedding? Michael's face paled. Judge Harrison was old money, the kind that cared deeply about reputation and propriety. Finding out his future son-in-law had attempted mortgage fraud would end more than just wedding plans. Catherine, please, he said, using my full name for the first time in years. We can work something out. Like you worked things out with Jessica while we were still married. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from whenever he felt cornered. What if I pay it back? All of it, with interest. This isn't about money, I said quietly. It's about truth. About facing what you've done. Just then, a car pulled into my driveway. Jessica stepped out, her face streaked with tears. Michael? Her voice cracked. Why are the caterers calling me about bounced checks? Why is Daddy asking about fraud alerts? I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Perfect timing, I said, holding up the folder. We were just discussing your wedding finances. The next hour was a blur of revelations. I laid out everything, the attempted theft, the forged documents, the years of financial deception. Jessica's face went from confusion to horror to rage. You told me the money was from your investments, she whispered, staring at Michael. You said you've been saving for years. Baby, I can explain. Explain what? She cut him off. How you tried to steal from your ex-wife to pay for our wedding. How you lied to me, to Daddy, to everyone. She turned to me, her mascara running. Did you know he's been pressuring me to postpone signing the prenup? Said it was just a formality we could handle after the wedding? I hadn't known that, but it fit perfectly with everything else. Michael tried to reach for her, but she jerked away. Don't touch me, don't you dare touch me. She ran back to her car, gravel spraying as she sped away. Michael stood there, watching her leave, his perfect world crumbling around him. Happy now, he spat at me. No, I said honestly, but at least the truth is out. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Judge Harrison, livid at the attempted fraud and deception, made sure Michael's actions became known throughout their social circle. The prestigious investment firm where he worked, already wary of scandal, asked for his resignation. Jessica returned the engagement ring via courier, along with a letter from her father's lawyer warning Michael to stay away from his daughter. But the real consequences came from the banking regulators. My careful documentation of Michael's attempted fraud triggered investigations into his professional dealings. Years of questionable transactions came to light. A week after everything exploded, Rachel called me. Have you seen the news? She asked without preamble. I pulled up the local business journal's website. There it was. Prominent banker under investigation for fraud and financial misconduct. Are you okay? Rachel's voice was soft with concern. I thought about it for a moment. Was I okay? The man I had once loved, who I'd built a life with, was facing criminal charges. His reputation was destroyed, his future uncertain. I'm better than okay, I realized. I'm free. The beach house stood exactly as Grandma Rose had left it. Weathered shingles and worn floorboards holding decades of family memories. I spent a weekend there, walking the familiar rooms, remembering summers spent listening to her stories. Never let anyone take what's yours, she used to say, looking out at the ocean. Not your property, not your dignity, not your truth. I finally understood what she meant. Spring came, bringing with it renewal and change. Michael pleaded guilty to reduced charges, accepting a sentence that included restitution and probation. Jessica married a junior partner at her father's law firm. Life moved on. I hired contractors to restore the beach house, updating it while preserving its character. As I oversaw the renovations, I thought about legacies, not just of property, but of strength and wisdom. One evening, sorting through old papers in Grandma's study, I found a letter she'd written to me before she died. My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, you've probably already discovered why I put the house in a trust. I saw in Michael what you couldn't or wouldn't see. A man who measured his worth by what he owned, who saw relationships as transactions. But you, my darling girl, you've always been stronger than you knew. Strong enough to face hard truths, to stand up for yourself, to rebuild when necessary. This house isn't just walls and windows. It's proof that some things can't be bought or stolen. They have to be earned, cherished, protected. Take care of it and let it take care of you. All my love, Grandma Rose. I wiped away tears, folding the letter carefully. She had known, maybe not the specifics, but she had known what might come. That summer, I hosted a family reunion at the beach house. Rachel brought her new baby, cousins flew in from across the country, and for the first time in years, the old rooms rang with laughter and love. Standing on the porch watching the sunset, Rachel joined me with her sleeping daughter in her arms. You did the right thing, she said quietly, exposing Michael, protecting what's yours. Grandma would be proud. I smiled, thinking of the letter upstairs. She already was. The waves crashed against the shore, constant and unchanging. Like the truth, I thought. You can try to hide it, deny it, run from it, but eventually it finds its way to the surface. Michael had tried to take what wasn't his, thinking money and charm could buy anything. But some things, integrity, justice, self-respect, those have to be earned. And once you find them, you have to protect them, just like Grandma Rose protected this house for me. My phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer confirming the last of Michael's restitution payments had been processed. I deleted it without responding. That chapter was closed. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Inside, I could hear my family's voices, the next generation making memories in these old rooms. This was my inheritance, not just the house, but the strength to protect what matters, the wisdom to know what's truly valuable, the courage to stand up for what's right. And that, I realized, was worth more than anything Michael had ever tried to steal. The funeral home's air conditioning hummed softly as I watched my sister Rebecca swagger through the door, 15 years too late to say goodbye to our parents. She looked exactly as I remembered. Expensive clothes, perfect makeup, and that air of entitlement that had always defined her. "Hello, little brother," she said, dropping her designer bag onto a chair. "Miss me? My name is Michael Bennett, and at 35, I just lost both my parents in a car accident. I'd spent the last decade caring for them as my father battled Parkinson's and my mother fought cancer. Rebecca, meanwhile, hadn't bothered to call once since she stormed out at 20, declaring our family too boring for her ambitions. "What are you doing here, Rebecca?" I asked, straightening my father's photo on the memorial display. She pulled out a thick envelope, tapping it against her palm. "Family obligation, and to claim what's rightfully mine." I felt the familiar tension headache building. "They're dead, Becca. If you came for forgiveness, you're too late." "Forgiveness?" She laughed, the sound jarring in the quiet room. "I came for my inheritance, half of everything. The house, the investments, Dad's company. It's all spelled out here." She thrust the papers at me. Legal documents claiming her right to 50% of our parents' estate as their firstborn child. My hands clenched involuntarily, crinkling the edges. "You abandoned them," I said quietly. "For 15 years, while I took care of them, managed Dad's company, handled everything. You were off living your life without a backward glance." Rebecca shrugged, examining her manicure. "And I'm sure you did a wonderful job playing the devoted son. But the law is the law. I'm entitled to my share." The worst part was, she might be right. Without a will specifically disinheriting her, Rebecca had a legal claim as their daughter. But there was something she didn't know, something our parents had left in their bedroom safe. "The reading of the will is tomorrow," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We'll discuss this then." "Oh, we'll do more than discuss it," she smirked. "I've already spoken to the other board members at Bennett Manufacturing. They're quite interested in my ideas for modernizing the company." Of course she had. Rebecca had always been good at manipulation, at telling people exactly what they wanted to hear. She'd probably promised them increased profits and aggressive expansion, everything our father had resisted in favor of steady, sustainable growth. "Still the same Becca," I said, shaking my head. "Always thinking you know better than everyone else." Her eyes narrowed. "And you're still the same pathetic little brother, clinging to Mom and Dad's outdated ways. Face it, Michael, you needed me. The company needed me. I just have the courage to go out and become something more." The arrival of other mourners prevented me from responding. I watched as Rebecca worked the room, playing the part of the grieving daughter perfectly. The tears, the sad smiles, the gentle touches on arms as people offered condolences. She was putting on quite a show. Later that evening, after everyone had left, I drove to our parents' house. The place felt empty now, echoing with memories. I made my way upstairs to their bedroom, where the safe sat hidden behind a painting. Dad had given me the combination just weeks before the accident. "There's something in there," he'd said, his hands shaking from the Parkinson's. "Something you'll need if Rebecca ever comes back." The safe opened with a soft click. Inside lay the usual documents, property deeds, insurance policies, stock certificates, but beneath them was a USB drive and a sealed envelope with my name on it. I recognized Dad's handwriting, shakier than it used to be but still distinct. The letter was dated just 3 months ago. "Dear Michael, if you're reading this, your mother and I are gone, and Rebecca has likely returned to claim her share. We knew she would. Money was always what mattered most to her. What she doesn't know is that we've been recording everything since she left. Every conversation where she refused to help with medical bills. Every email where she ignored our pleas to visit. And most importantly, the real reason she abandoned us. The USB drive contains security footage from my office the night before she left. Watch it. You'll understand why we changed our will. Love, Dad." My hands trembled as I plugged the drive into my laptop. The video was grainy but clear enough. It showed Rebecca in Dad's office late at night, transferring money from the company accounts. Not just a small amount, millions. The timestamp matched perfectly with her sudden departure 15 years ago. She hadn't left because we were too boring. She'd left because she'd stolen enough to start her new life, thinking the transfers were untraceable. But Dad had known. He kept the evidence all these years, waiting for the day she'd try to come back and take more. I checked the other documents in the safe. The will was there, properly notarized and updated 6 months ago. It left everything to me with a specific clause disinheriting Rebecca due to her documented theft and abandonment. There was more. Bank records showing the transfers, emails Rebecca had thought were deleted, even recordings of phone conversations where she'd brazenly admitted taking the money, thinking the statute of limitations had expired. My phone buzzed. A message from Rebecca. Talk to the board. They're very excited about my vision for the company. Hope you're ready for some changes, little brother. I smiled, thinking of the evidence in my hands. Rebecca had always been good at playing games. But this time, she was playing against opponents who'd have 15 years to prepare. The next morning, I arrived early at the lawyer's office for the reading of the will. Philip Chen, our family's attorney for 30 years, greeted me with a knowing look. Rebecca's already here, he said quietly, and she brought her own lawyer. Sure enough, Rebecca sat in the conference room with a sharp-suited attorney who looked fresh out of law school. She changed from yesterday's funeral attire into what I recognized as her business warrior outfit. Blood red blazer, black pencil skirt, stilettos that could double as weapons. Let's get this over with, she said as I sat down. I have a board meeting at 11. Philip cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. Very well. Before we begin, there are some materials that need to be reviewed. He connected a laptop to the room's projector. Rebecca's smirk faltered slightly when a security footage began playing. What is this? Her lawyer demanded. Evidence, Philip replied calmly, of approximately $3.2 million stolen from Bennett Manufacturing 15 years ago. The statute of limitations hasn't expired, by the way. The discovery of the crime restarts the clock. Rebecca's face went pale as she watched herself on screen, transferring money late that night. The timestamp was clear, the evidence undeniable. That's not. I was authorized. No, you weren't. I cut in. Dad knew everything, Becca. He kept records, emails, phone calls, bank transfers, everything. Her lawyer leaned forward, whispering urgently in her ear. She waved him off, her composure cracking. Fine, she snapped. So I took some money. The company owed me. I was supposed to inherit it anyway. Is that what you told yourself? I asked. When Mom was dying of cancer and needed experimental treatments we could barely afford. When Dad's medications cost thousands every month. Don't you dare guilt trip me, she hissed. I earned my freedom from this family's emotional manipulation. Philip cleared his throat again. Perhaps we should proceed to the will itself. The document was brutally clear. Everything, the house, the company, the investments, went to me. Rebecca was explicitly disinherited, cited for theft and abandonment. This is ridiculous, she sputtered. I'll contest it. The board will back me. The board, I interrupted, has already seen the evidence. They're meeting right now to discuss it. Her phone buzzed as if on cue. The color drained from her face as she read the message. Emergency board meeting. Vote of no confidence. Criminal investigation pending. Did you really think Dad wouldn't protect the company? I asked quietly. He spent 40 years building it. He knew exactly who you were and what you might try to do. Rebecca's lawyer gathered his papers quickly. Ms. Bennett, I advise you not to say anything further. We need to discuss your options. But Rebecca wasn't listening. She was staring at the video screen, still showing her younger self stealing from our family. I had to leave, she whispered, more to herself than to us. This town, this family, it was suffocating me. I needed more. And now, I asked, was it worth it? She looked at me, then really looked at me for the first time since she returned. You don't understand. I built something for myself. A life, a reputation. Built on stolen money, Philip interjected, which the authorities will be very interested in tracking. Rebecca's hands began to shake. You wouldn't. We're family. Family? I stood up, gathering the evidence files. Family was sitting with Mom through chemo. Family was helping Dad when the Parkinson's got so bad he couldn't feed himself. Where were you then, Becca? She had no answer. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling, and she knew it. The police will be here soon, Philip said gently. I suggest you use this time to consider your options. The police arrived within the hour. 2 detectives in plain clothes, their badges glinting under the office lights. Rebecca sat silently as they read her rights, her perfect makeup smeared with tears. "You can still fix this," I told her as they prepared to take her in. "Pay back what you stole. Make it right." She looked up at me, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the sister I'd known before money and ambition had corrupted her. "How?" "Everything I have. It all traces back to that money." "Then start over," I said. "The right way this time." The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and damage control. The story hit the local news. Prominent businesswoman arrested for historic theft. Prodigal daughters return ends in handcuffs. Rebecca's carefully built reputation crumbled as investigators traced the stolen money through various investments and businesses. She eventually accepted a plea deal, 5 years in prison, full restitution, and a public admission of guilt. The day before she reported to prison, she asked to meet me at our parents' house. "I've been thinking," she said, standing in the living room where family photos still hung on the walls. "About Mom and Dad, about everything. And they were right about me. I was so focused on proving I was better than this place, better than the life they chose." She touched a photo of us as children, both smiling at the camera. I became exactly what they feared I would. I sat down on the familiar old couch. "They never stopped loving you, even after everything." "I know," she whispered. "The recordings, I listened to them all. Every message I ignored, every call for help. I heard Mom crying when I missed her last Christmas." 5 years is a long time," I said. "But maybe it's what you need. Time to remember who you were before all this." She nodded, wiping her eyes. Will you keep the photos up while I'm gone?" "Of course. Family is family, Becca, even when they lose their way." After she left for prison, I found a letter she'd left in Dad's old study. "Dear Michael, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve it. But these past weeks, watching you handle everything with the grace and strength I never had, I finally understand what Dad always saw in you. Take care of the company. Take care of our family's legacy. You were always better at that than me. Maybe in 5 years, if you're willing, we can try to be brother and sister again. Real family this time, not just DNA and court battles. I'm sorry for everything. Love, Becca." The company thrived under proper leadership. I married Sarah, the girl next door Mom had always hoped I'd notice, and we had twins who filled the old house with laughter again. And every Christmas, I sent photos and letters to a prison in upstate New York, keeping a promise to parents who'd taught me that family bonds, though sometimes bent or broken, could still be mended. Rebecca served her time, paid her debt, and emerged changed. Not instantly, not perfectly, but genuinely. She started over with nothing but her education and determination, building a legitimate consulting business. Our relationship healed slowly, like a broken bone that needs time to grow stronger. Years later, at my twins' 10th birthday party, I found Rebecca showing them old family photos, telling stories about their grandparents. She caught my eye and smiled, a real smile, not the practiced one she'd once used to charm board members. "You kept the photos up," she said later, after the kids were in bed. "Family is family," I replied. "That's what Mom and Dad always said." She nodded, understanding finally what they'd known all along, that true wealth isn't measured in stolen millions or corporate takeovers, but in the bonds we choose to honor and protect. "This isn't personal, Alexandra," Board Chairman Richard Thompson said, not meeting my eyes. "The allegations about your mental health and emotional outbursts are concerning. The board feels Carol would provide more stable leadership." I sat perfectly still in the mahogany-lined conference room, studying the faces around the table. 8 board members, all avoiding my gaze except my sister Carol, who wore an expression of carefully crafted concern. "Of course," she said softly, reaching for my hand. "I hate that it's come to this, but you need time to focus on your health, Alex." I pulled my hand away, feeling the weight of my phone in my jacket pocket. "My health," I repeated. "How thoughtful of you to be so concerned." "My name is Alexandra Chen, and at 35, I was being ousted as CEO of Chen Technologies, the company my father built and had helped grow into a billion-dollar enterprise. My younger sister Carol had spent months orchestrating my downfall, spreading rumors about my mental state, fabricating stories about angry outbursts, and convincing the board I was unfit to lead. What she didn't know was that I'd seen it coming. "We'll need you to clear out your office today," Thompson continued, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "The severance package is generous. Your shares will be purchased at market value. I picked up the envelope without opening it. And if I refuse? Carol's perfectly composed expression flickered. Alex, please don't make this difficult. The board has made their decision. Based on your testimony, I noted, watching her closely, your concerns about my stability, and the incidents reported by multiple employees, Thompson added quickly. The outburst in the development meeting, the aggressive emails, the erratic behavior. Interesting, I said, finally reaching for my phone. Would you like to know what really happened in that development meeting? Carol's hand twitched toward her water glass. We don't need to rehash. Actually, we do. I placed my phone on a table and pressed play. Carol's voice filled the room. Listen, Mark, I need you to back me up on this. Just tell the board that Alex lost it during the meeting. Screamed, threw things. Make it convincing. Don't worry about proof. Once enough people tell the same story, it becomes the truth. The recording continued, revealing Carol methodically planning my destruction, coaching employees to lie, fabricating evidence, manipulating board members. The color drained from her face as her own words exposed her scheme. Thompson's mouth hung open slightly, while other board members shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. There's more, I said calmly, stopping the playback. Emails, text messages, video footage from my office security camera showing Carol planting evidence in my desk. Would you like to see those too? This is taken out of context, Carol stammered, her composure cracking. I was trying to protect the company. By destroying your sister. My father's voice cut through the room. Everyone turned to see him standing in the doorway, leaning on his cane. Dad, Carol began, rising from her chair. You're supposed to be resting. I've been resting for 2 years, he said, moving slowly into the room. Watching, listening, seeing what you've become. 6 months ago, our father had suffered a stroke. He'd stepped down as chairman, handing control to Thompson while maintaining his majority shareholding. Everyone had assumed he was too weak, too disconnected to notice what was happening in his company. Everyone was wrong. Richard, my father addressed Thompson directly, you've known me for 20 years. Did you really believe my daughter, my chosen successor, was mentally unstable? Or did you just find it convenient to believe Carol's lies? Thompson's face reddened. John, the board had concerns. The board had ambition, my father corrected, and Carol played to it perfectly. But did any of you bother to verify her claims? To question why Alexandra's supposed instability only surfaced after she blocked Carol's attempted hostile takeover of our Asian division? A heavy silence fell over the room. 3 months ago, I discovered Carol's secret plan to spin off our Asian operations into a separate company, one she would control. I'd shut it down immediately, protecting thousands of jobs and our family's legacy. That's when the rumors about my mental health had started. You don't understand, Carol said, her voice rising. She's going to destroy everything you built, Dad. Her ideas about sustainable technology, ethical AI. They'll cut our profits in half. They'll secure our future, I countered. Which you'd know if you'd bothered to read the market research instead of plotting against me. Enough, my father said quietly but firmly. He turned to address the board. As majority shareholder, I am calling for an emergency vote of no confidence in this board. Alexandra has provided evidence of conspiracy and attempted fraud. Would you prefer to resign now, or should we make this public? One by one, the board members looked at each other. Thompson was the first to stand. I'll have my resignation letter on your desk within the hour, he said stiffly. Others quickly followed suit, leaving only Carol still seated, her perfectly curated world crumbling around her. How long? She asked, finally looking at me. How long have you been recording everything? Since the day you tried to access my private medical records, I replied. Do you really think I wouldn't notice? 2 months ago, I discovered Carol had attempted to bribe my therapist's office manager for access to my sessions. She'd been looking for anything she could use to support her claims about my mental health. Instead, she tipped her hand. You were always the careful one, she said bitterly, always planning 10 steps ahead. Dad's perfect daughter. No, our father corrected. She was the responsible one. The one who understood that leadership isn't about power, it's about protection. Protecting our employees, our legacy, our family. Family? Carol laughed sharply. Is that what we are? When was the last time either of you saw me as anything but a threat? When was the last time you gave us a reason not to? I asked quietly. The question hung in the air between us, heavy with years of competition, jealousy, and broken trust. My phone buzzed. A text from Grace, my head of security. Police are here. Should I send them up? I looked at my sister, seeing not the polished executive she pretended to be, but the little girl who used to follow me around, wanting to be just like her big sister. The police are here, I told her softly. The evidence of fraud and conspiracy is substantial. You're facing serious charges. You do that, she whispered. You'd send your own sister to prison. You tried to destroy me, Carol. You manipulated people into lying, falsified documents, attempted to access private medical records. What did you think would happen? Our father moved to stand between us. There might be another way, he said carefully, if Carol agrees to certain conditions. I studied my father's face, seeing the weight of his decision in his eyes. Despite everything Carol had done, he was still trying to find a way to save her. What conditions? Carol asked, her voice small. Complete resignation from Chen Technologies, he began. Surrender of all shares. A signed confession of your actions, to be held in trust. And most importantly, mandatory therapy. Real therapy, not the kind you fabricated about your sister. Carol's perfectly manicured hands clenched in her lap. You want me to give up everything? No, I corrected. We're offering you a chance to keep your freedom. The evidence I have. Carol, you'd be looking at serious prison time. A knock at the conference room door interrupted us. Grace, my head of security, stepped in. Ms. Chen, the police are waiting in the lobby. Should I tell them to proceed? I held Carol's gaze, watching the reality of her situation sink in. All her careful planning, her manipulations, her schemes, they had led her here, to this moment of truth. Give us a minute, Grace, I said, not breaking eye contact with my sister. After Grace left, Carol seemed to deflate, her polished exterior cracking completely. Why did you do it? I asked, the question that had been burning inside me for months. Really, Carol? What made you hate me so much? Hate you. She laughed bitterly. I don't hate you, Alex. I wanted to be you. Dad's golden child, the brilliant successor, the one who could do no wrong. Do you have any idea what it's like living in your shadow? So you tried to destroy me? That was your solution? I tried to prove I could be better, she snapped. That I could be stronger, more decisive. When I found out about your therapy sessions, I thought, finally, a weakness. Finally, a way to show everyone that perfect Alexandra wasn't so perfect after all. Our father sank heavily into a chair. Where did we go wrong? He muttered. How did it come to this? I thought about all the signs I'd missed over the years. Carol's increasing resentment, her desperate attempts to prove herself, the way she gradually isolated herself from the family. The confession. I said finally, everything. Every lie you told, every person you manipulated. I want it all in writing. Carol nodded slowly. And then what? Then you get help. Real help. Not for us, but for yourself. Over the next few hours, Carol wrote everything down. A 20-page document detailing her elaborate scheme to discredit me. The employees she bribed or coerced, the evidence she fabricated, the board members she manipulated. When she finished, her hands were shaking. What about the police? I'll handle it, our father said. But Carol, this is your last chance. If you break these conditions, if you try anything like this again, I understand, she whispered. After she left with our father, I sat alone in the conference room, looking at the city skyline through the wall of windows. The recording that had saved my career was still on my phone, along with dozens of others. Conversations, meetings, proof of every lie and manipulation. Grace came in with coffee. The board members are all gone. Their resignation letters are on your desk. Thank you. I took the coffee gratefully. Any word from the development team about the Sustainable Tech Initiative? They're waiting for your go-ahead. Now that Carol's interference is dealt with, we can move forward. I nodded, already thinking about next steps. The company needed stability now, needed to know that the leadership drama was over. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Carol's checked into the treatment center. 3 months minimum. Are you sure about this? I typed back, yes, everyone deserves a chance to change. The next few weeks were intense. I appointed a new board, people chosen for their expertise rather than their political connections. The Sustainable Technology Initiative launched successfully, drawing praise from industry experts and environmental groups alike. Carol's confession had been sealed and placed in trust with our family attorney, a safeguard against any future attempts at corporate warfare. The employees she'd manipulated were offered a choice: come clean and keep their jobs, or resign quietly. Most chose honesty. 1 month after everything happened, I received an unexpected letter from Carol's treatment center. Dear Alexandra, it began. I've been doing a lot of thinking here. A lot of therapy. They're making me look at why I did what I did, why I became someone who could hurt her own sister so deliberately. The letter continued for pages, filled with the kind of raw honesty I hadn't seen from Carol in years. I don't expect forgiveness, she wrote near the end. I probably don't deserve it, but I want you to know that I see it now. What real strength looks like. It's not about destroying others to lift yourself up. It's about having the power to destroy someone and choosing not to. I folded the letter carefully and locked it in my desk drawer. Time would tell if Carol's insights were genuine or just another manipulation. 6 months later, Chen Technologies had its most successful quarter ever. Our sustainable technology division was revolutionizing the industry, proving that ethical business practices and profitability could coexist. Carol completed her treatment program and, true to her word, stayed away from the company. She started a small consulting firm, helping other businesses implement sustainable practices. She's different, our father said during one of our weekly dinners. Really different. The therapy, it helped. I hope so, I replied. But trust takes time. He reached across the table to squeeze my hand. You did the right thing, finding a way to hold her accountable without destroying her completely. That's real leadership. I thought about the recording still on my phone, the evidence I'd gathered, the power I'd held over Carol's future. I could have ruined her completely, the way she tried to ruin me. Instead, I'd chosen a different path. That night, as I sat in my office reviewing quarterly reports, my phone buzzed with a text from Carol. The sustainability conference is next month. I'm speaking about ethical business transitions. Would you consider attending? I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about trust and forgiveness, about family and redemption. Send me the details, I typed back finally. Maybe some bridges couldn't be rebuilt. Maybe some trust, once broken, could never be fully restored. But maybe, just maybe, we could build something new, something stronger, because we understood exactly how fragile relationships could be. The sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. From my office window, I could see the Chen Technologies logo glowing against the darkening sky. A reminder of everything we built, everything we protected, everything we'd learned. Leadership, I discovered, wasn't just about making the right decisions. Sometimes it was about finding the wisdom to be merciful, even when mercy wasn't deserved. I picked up my phone one last time and deleted the recordings. We couldn't move forward if we kept holding onto the weapons of the past. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new opportunities to either build or destroy. But for now, in this moment, I knew I'd chosen the right path. Not the easiest one, not the most satisfying one, but the right one. And in the end, that's what leadership was really about. The granite countertops gleamed in the afternoon sun as Mark led me through his new beachfront kitchen, his arm wrapped possessively around his young wife's waist. Everything sparkled. The stainless steel appliances, the crystal chandelier, even Jessica's massive diamond ring. Beautiful, isn't it? He asked, gesturing proudly at the ocean view. Your mother would have loved it. I felt bile rise in my throat. My mother had been dead for exactly 3 months and 12 days, and here was her husband of 15 years, showing off the luxury home he bought with her life insurance money, while parading around his new wife who was barely older than me. Mom hated the beach, I said quietly. She got migraines from the glare. Mark's smile tightened slightly. Well, people change, Emma. Besides, this is my life now. Jessica, and I deserve a fresh start. My name is Emma Chen, and at 32, I thought I understood grief. But watching my stepfather spend my mother's death benefit on a new life with a woman young enough to be his daughter, that was a different kind of pain entirely. Of course you do, I said, gripping my purse strap so tightly my knuckles turned white. Mom would have wanted you to be happy. It was a lie. My mother, Linda Chen, had been suspicious of Mark's behavior in the months before her sudden heart attack. She tried to tell me something was wrong. that he was acting strangely, but I'd been too caught up in my own life, my law practice, my recent divorce, to really listen. Now standing in his $1 million beach house, watching Jessica fawn over the wine fridge that probably cost more than my car, I couldn't stop thinking about my mother's last voicemail. "Emma, honey, I need to talk to you about Mark. Something's not right with the insurance paperwork he had me sign." She died 2 days later before I could call her back. "Oh, look at the time," Mark said, checking his Rolex. "Another new purchase. We have dinner reservations at 7. You understand, right?" I nodded, already heading for the door. "Of course. Thanks for showing me around." "Emma," he called after me, "I know this is hard for you, but your mother left the insurance money to me for a reason. She wanted me to be taken care of." I turned back, studying his face, the face I'd known since I was 17, when he'd married my mother and moved into our modest suburban home. He looked different now, somehow harder, his familiar features twisted by something I couldn't quite name. "Right," I said. "Mom always thought of others first." It wasn't until I was in my car, hands shaking on the steering wheel, that I let myself think about what I'd discovered 2 days ago. The truth about my mother's life insurance policy and about Mark's role in her death. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Sarah Rodriguez. "Got the files you requested. You need to see this." I started the engine, my mind racing. Mark thought he had everything figured out. He had no idea what was coming. 20 minutes later, I sat in Sarah's office at the police station, staring at the documents spread across her desk. We'd been friends since law school, and when I first shared my suspicions about Mark, she'd pulled every string she could to help investigate. "The original policy was only for $500,000, Sarah explained, pointing to a document from 2010. "But look at this. 3 months before your mom died, it was changed to $2 million. The signature on the change form doesn't match her handwriting." I laid out my own findings, the results of weeks of careful digging. Bank statements showing large transfers from Mark to Jessica dating back a year before my mother's death. Medical records indicating my mother had been in perfect health before her sudden heart attack. And most damning of all, evidence that Mark had been quietly selling off my mother's valuable Asian art collection in the months leading up to her death. He was planning this, I said, my voice tight with anger. The insurance scam, the new wife, all of it. He just needed Mom out of the way first. Sarah leaned back in her chair, her expression grim. "The signature forgery is clear fraud. And with the suspicious timing of your mom's death, we might have enough for a criminal investigation." "Not yet," I said, gathering the documents back into my briefcase. "I need more. I need to know exactly what happened to Mom." The next few weeks were a careful dance of investigation and pretense. I started visiting Mark and Jessica more often, playing the role of the grieving daughter, trying to maintain family connections. Each visit was an opportunity to gather more information, to notice details that seemed out of place. Like the fact that Mark had cleared out my mother's home office before the police could examine it after her death. Or how he'd insisted on cremation, against her written wishes for a traditional burial. But it was during one of these visits that I found something that changed everything. I'd excused myself to use the bathroom, but instead of turning right toward the guest bath, I went left, toward Mark's home office. The door was locked, but I'd come prepared. The lock-picking skills I'd learned during my brief stint in criminal defense law finally proved useful. Inside, the office was immaculate, too immaculate. No papers on the desk, nothing in the trash. But there, in the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet, I found a small key labeled Storage Unit 23. I photographed it with my phone and carefully replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. That night, I called Sarah. "I need a warrant," I said without preamble. "Mark has a storage unit, and I bet anything Mom's original files are in there." "The signature fraud isn't enough for a judge," she replied. "We need more." "Then we'll get more," I said, an idea forming. "How do you feel about some undercover work?" The plan was simple but risky. Sarah would pose as a potential buyer interested in the beach house. Mark had recently listed it, claiming he and Jessica wanted to travel the world. During the showing, she'd accidentally discover something that would give us probable cause for a broader search warrant. What we didn't expect was for Jessica to be the one to crack. Sarah was touring the house, asking all the right questions about the property's history, when she casually mentioned reading about the previous owner's death. Such a tragedy, she said, watching Jessica's reaction carefully. Heart attack, wasn't it? And so sudden. Jessica's perfectly maintained facade slipped for just a moment. I told him it was too much, she whispered, more to herself than to Sarah. The medicine. I said it was too risky. Sarah pressed her advantage. I'm sorry, what medicine? Jessica's eyes widened as she realized what she'd said. Nothing. I need to make a call. The showing is over. But it was too late. Her slip was exactly what we needed. Within hours, Sarah had a warrant not just for the storage unit, but for all of Mark's properties and financial records. What we found in storage unit 23 made my blood run cold. Stacked neatly in a fireproof safe were documents detailing everything. The original insurance policy, emails between Mark and Jessica dating back 2 years, and most damning of all, receipts for heart medication that had never been prescribed to my mother. The same medication that, in high doses, could trigger a fatal heart attack while leaving almost no trace. I sat in my apartment that night, surrounded by copies of the evidence, my hands shaking as I read through the emails between Mark and Jessica. They'd been planning this for months, maybe years. The insurance scam was just part of it. They'd systematically stolen and sold off my mother's art collection, piece by piece, building up a nest egg for their new life together. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Coming by for dinner tomorrow? Jessica's making her famous lasagna. I stared at the message, thinking about my mother's last voicemail, about her suspicions that had gone unheard, about how she must have felt in those final days, realizing something was wrong but not knowing exactly what. Wouldn't miss it, I typed back. Tomorrow Mark would learn exactly what it felt like to have everything taken away. The lasagna sat untouched on Mark's elaborate dining table as 3 sharp knocks echoed through the beach house. Jessica jumped slightly, her wine glass clinking against her plate. Are we expecting someone else? She asked Mark, who had gone pale. Police. We have a warrant. Detective Rodriguez's voice carried clearly through the front door. Mark stood so quickly his chair toppled backward. Emma, he said, his voice tight with sudden understanding. What did you do? I took a slow sip of water, maintaining eye contact as footsteps approached the dining room. I did what Mom would have wanted. I found the truth. Sarah entered first, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. She held up a document. Mark Thompson, we have a warrant to search these premises in connection with the death of Linda Chen and suspected insurance fraud. Jessica burst into tears, mascara streaming down her face. Mark, you said nobody would find out. You promised. His face contorted with rage. Shut up, Jessica. But it was too late. As the officers began their search, I pulled out my phone and played the recording I'd made of our entire dinner conversation, including Mark's casual admission about changing Mom's insurance policy for her own good. You recorded me? He snarled, lunging across the table. The officers grabbed him before he could reach me. Actually, I said calmly, I've been recording everything for weeks, including your conversation last Thursday about the unexpected complications with Mom's medication. The color drained from his face. You can't prove anything. I opened my briefcase and started laying out documents one by one. The forged insurance documents, bank records showing transfers between you and Jessica dating back 2 years, receipts for heart medication that was never prescribed to Mom. And I pulled out one final paper with a flourish, a very interesting statement from Jessica's ex-roommate about your relationship timeline. Jessica collapsed into her chair, sobbing harder. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. He said it would be easy. Just sign some papers, play along. I didn't know he was going to murder my mother. I finished for her. Funny how greed works, isn't it? Mark struggled against the officers holding him. You ungrateful little bitch. After everything I did for you and your mother. Like slowly poisoning her with unprescribed heart medication. Sarah cut in, snapping handcuffs around his wrists. Yes, we found the bottles in your storage unit, along with Linda's original insurance documents and quite a collection of forged paperwork. As they led Mark away, he kept shouting about betrayal and ingratitude. Jessica was arrested too, though her hysterical cooperation would probably earn her a lighter sentence. I stayed behind as the police searched the house, watching them bag evidence and take photos. In the master bedroom, they found my mother's missing jewelry, pieces Mark had claimed she'd donated to charity before her death. Sarah found me staring at Mom's jade pendant, now sealed in an evidence bag. You okay? I nodded slowly. I just keep thinking about her last voicemail. If I called her back. Hey, Sarah squeezed my shoulder. Don't do that to yourself. You got justice for her. That's what matters. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings. Mark, faced with overwhelming evidence, tried to blame everything on Jessica. She, in turn, provided state's evidence against him, detailing their 2-year affair and his elaborate plan to kill my mother for the insurance money. The trial was surprisingly quick. Mark was sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder, with additional charges for fraud and theft. Jessica got 5 years for her role in the conspiracy. The insurance company reversed the policy changes, awarding me the original $500,000 benefit as my mother's sole heir. I used part of it to establish a scholarship in her name at the local university's art history department, her lifelong passion that Mark had tried to erase. 1 year after Mark's arrest, I stood in my mother's restored home office, surrounded by the recovered pieces of her art collection. The insurance company's investigators had tracked down most of the pieces Mark had sold, and I'd spent months buying them back. Sarah visited regularly, helping me catalog everything and listening to stories about each piece. Stories my mother had told me that I'd half forgotten until now. Found something interesting in the evidence archives, she said one afternoon, holding out a small recorder. Your mom's old answering machine. There are some saved messages on it. With trembling hands, I pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room. Emma, honey, it's Mom. I've been thinking about what you said last week, about how it's never too late to start over. You were right. I've made an appointment with a lawyer to change my will and insurance documents. I don't trust Mark anymore, and I need to protect what's yours. Call me back when you can. I love you. Tears rolled down my cheeks as the message ended. She'd known. She tried to fix things to protect me, right until the end. She'd be proud of you, Sarah said softly. You know that, right? I nodded, placing the recorder among my mother's beloved art pieces. I know, I just wish that you could tell her one more time how much you love her. That and how sorry I am for not listening sooner. Sarah smiled gently. I think she knew. Mothers always know. The doorbell rang. The realtor I'd hired to sell Mark's beach house. The proceeds would go to a domestic violence shelter, helping other women escape toxic relationships before it was too late. As I walked through the house one last time before the showing, I paused in the kitchen where Mark had once showed off his ill-gotten gains. The granite countertops no longer gleamed with quite the same sinister pride. Instead, they reflected the afternoon sun in a way that reminded me of my mother's smile. I placed her jade pendant on the counter, the last piece of evidence returned by the police. Its green surface caught the light, throwing patterns on the wall like the ones that used to dance in her home office when she'd tell me stories about each piece in her collection. We did it, Mom, I whispered, touching the cool stone one last time before placing it in my pocket. We made things right. The case made headlines, of course. Daughter uncovers stepfather's deadly insurance scam and justice served. Murder for money plot exposed. But those headlines missed the real story. This wasn't just about money or justice or even revenge. It was about preserving my mother's legacy, protecting the things she'd loved, and making sure her story wasn't erased by the man who tried to steal everything she was. As I locked up the beach house one final time, I thought about new beginnings. Mom had been right. It's never too late to start over. But sometimes, before you can move forward, you have to fight for the truth about the past. I fingered the jade pendant in my pocket, feeling its familiar weight. Some things I'd learned are worth fighting for. Some truths need to be told. And some legacies deserve to be protected, no matter the cost. The sun was setting over the ocean as I drove away, casting long shadows across the road. But for the first time since my mother's death, I wasn't afraid of the darkness. I had found my way through it, carrying her light with me. And that light, I knew now, would never fade. The security camera blinked at me mockingly as I stood on my own front porch, still wearing my scrubs after a grueling 12-hour shift in the ER. My feet ached, my back was killing me, and all I wanted was to collapse into my own bed. Instead, I was staring at Patricia's smug face through the doorbell camera, trying to process what she just told me. I mean it, Emma, she continued, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against something off-screen. David's finally seen sense. This house belongs to our family, and you were never good enough for it or for him. My name is Emma Chin, and at 32, I was living through every daughter-in-law's worst nightmare. But unlike most women in my position, I'd seen this coming from a mile away. Patricia Williams had been trying to sabotage my marriage to her precious son David since the day we met 5 years ago. It started small, snide comments about my Chinese heritage at family dinners, constant criticism of my career choices, a doctor. But when will you have time for children? And not so subtle attempts to set David up with her friends' daughters. But over the past year, things had escalated. She'd gone from passive-aggressive to just plain aggressive, and tonight was clearly her grand finale. I shifted my weight, adjusting my grip on my work bag as I maintained eye contact with the camera. "Where's David?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "I'd like to hear this from him." Patricia's laugh crackled through the speaker. "He's not here. He's staying at our house while he processes everything. But he left this for you." She held up a piece of paper, what looked like a hastily scrawled note. "Would you like me to read it?" "No need," I replied, already pulling out my phone. "I'll just call him myself." "Oh, he's changed his number too. Fresh start, and all that." Her voice dripped with satisfaction. "There are some boxes on the porch with your things. Take them and leave, Emma. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." I glanced at the 3 cardboard boxes stacked neatly beside the door. They hadn't been there when I left for work this morning. I could see some of my clothes spilling out of the top one, hastily shoved in without care. My throat tightened, but not from sadness, from anger. "Patricia," I said calmly, "I'm going to give you one chance to open this door and explain what's really going on. Because right now, you're committing several crimes, and I don't think you want me to start listing them." She scoffed. "Crimes? This is my son's house. He has every right to." "This is my house." I cut her off, my voice sharp. "My name is on the deed. I paid for it with my own money. And what you're doing right now is illegal entry, theft, and harassment, just for starters." There was a pause, and I could almost see the wheels turning in her head. "David told me this was his house," she said finally, but there was a note of uncertainty in her voice now. I smiled, remembering the day I'd bought this place. David had been hesitant about putting only my name on the deed, but I'd insisted. For tax purposes, I told him. But really, it was because I'd seen the way Patricia manipulated him, the way she used money and guilt to control every aspect of his life. I wasn't about to let her have any claim on my home. "Would you like me to have my lawyer explain it to you?" I asked, already pulling up Jennifer's number on my phone. "She'd be happy to walk you through exactly how much trouble you're in right now." "You're bluffing," Patricia snapped, but I could hear the fear creeping into her voice. "David would never let you." "I'm not bluffing," I interrupted again. "And I'm done talking through a camera. You have exactly 30 minutes to open this door and get out of my house before I call the police. Your choice, Patricia." I turned and walked back to my car, settling into the driver's seat. My hands were shaking slightly as I pulled out my phone, but my mind was clear. I had been preparing for something like this ever since last Christmas, when I'd overheard Patricia telling David that he needed to man up and take control of his life. I'd started documenting everything after that. Every threatening text, every manipulative phone call, every surprise visit where she tried to catch me doing something wrong. I called Jennifer, my lawyer and closest friend since college. She picked up on the second ring. "Let me guess," she said. "The monster-in-law finally showed her true colors." "She changed my locks and claims David's leaving me," I replied, watching the house. "She's barricaded herself inside with some story about him staying with them while he processes everything." Jennifer's sharp intake of breath was followed by the sound of typing. "Have you talked to David?" "Can't reach him. According to Patricia, he's changed his number." I paused, a thought occurring to me. She's done something to him, Jen. This isn't like him. "Want me to send the police?" I considered it for a moment. "Not yet. Give me 30 minutes to try something first, but stay on standby." "Always, and Emma, be careful. Desperate people do desperate things." I hung up and started scrolling through my contacts until I found the one I was looking for. Mark Williams, David's younger brother, picked up almost immediately. "Emma? Thank God. I've been trying to reach David all day." My heart sank. "You can't get hold of him either?" "No, and Mom's been acting weird." She told me he was working late, but when I called the office, they said he never came in today. Mark's voice was tight with worry. What's going on? I filled him in quickly, watching as lights flicked on and off inside my house. Patricia was clearly agitated, probably trying to figure out her next move. Holy shit, Mark breathed when I finished. I knew Mom was losing it, but this is next level. Want me to come over? Please, and Mark, bring your key to your parents' house. I have a feeling that's where we'll find David. Mark met me outside my house 20 minutes later, his face grim as he took in the boxes on the porch. Patricia still hadn't emerged, though the security camera had gone dark. She probably figured out how to disable it. I called Dad, Mark said quietly, joining me by my car. He's staying out of it, his exact words. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so similar to David's that my heart ached. I'm so sorry, Emma. I knew Mom was unstable. But it's not your fault, I said, checking my phone again. Still no word from David. Ready to head to your parents' house? He nodded, twirling his key ring around his finger. You really think she's got him there? Where else would she hide him? We took separate cars, just in case we needed to transport David. The drive to the Williams mansion felt longer than usual, each minute stretching with possibilities. Was David okay? Had Patricia finally pushed him too far? And most importantly, what had she done to make him go along with this? The house was dark when we arrived, but Patricia's Mercedes was in the driveway alongside David's Audi. My hands clenched around the steering wheel at the sight of his car. He was here. Mark used his key to let us in, and we moved quietly through the silent house. Everything was immaculate, perfectly arranged, Patricia's obsession with control evident in every carefully placed ornament and straightened picture frame. Check the guest rooms, I whispered to Mark. I'll take the study. He nodded and headed upstairs while I made my way to Robert Williams' study. David had always felt safe there, even as a child. It was the one place Patricia rarely ventured. The door was locked, but I could see light seeping out from underneath. My heart pounding, I knocked softly. Dad? David's voice, groggy and confused, came through the door. Is that you? David, it's Emma. Can you open the door? There was a shuffling sound, then footsteps. The door cracked open, and there he was, my husband, looking disheveled and dazed. His eyes were unfocused, and he swayed slightly as he stared at me. Emma, he blinked slowly. What? What are you doing here? Mom said. I pushed the door open wider and caught him as he stumbled. David, what did she give you? Just something to help me sleep, he mumbled, leaning heavily against me. Said I was too stressed, needed to rest. Fury rose in my chest as I helped him to the leather couch. Patricia had drugged him, probably with sleeping pills, maybe something stronger. No wonder he'd been so compliant with her plans. Mark. I called out, keeping my voice low but urgent. In here. Mark appeared in the doorway, his face darkening as he took in his brother's condition. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Is he drugged? I confirmed, checking David's pupils. They were pinpoints. Call an ambulance. Now. The next few hours passed in a blur. The paramedics arrived, followed by the police. David was taken to the hospital. Not mine, thank God, but a good one across town. Patricia was nowhere to be found, but a quick check of her credit cards showed she'd booked a flight to her sister's place in Florida. Jennifer arrived at the hospital just as they were finishing David's toxicology screen. The results confirmed what I'd suspected. A dangerous combination of sleeping pills and anti-anxiety medication, enough to keep him confused and compliant, but not enough to raise immediate alarm. We can add attempted murder to the charges, Jennifer said grimly, reviewing the report, along with breaking and entering, theft, false imprisonment. I don't care about charges right now, I interrupted, watching David sleek through the observation window. I just want him safe. Mark had gone to secure the house and change the locks. Again, the police had documented everything, including Patricia's hasty evidence removal attempts. She tried to delete the security camera footage, but had already backed it up to the cloud. Every smug word, every threat, preserved for the court to see. David woke up properly around midnight, the drugs finally clearing his system. I was sitting beside his bed when his eyes opened, clear and alert for the first time in what must have been days. Emma? He reached for my hand, his voice hoarse. What happened? The last thing I remember. Your mother, I said softly, squeezing his fingers. She's been drugging you, David. For days, maybe longer. She tried to make it look like you'd left me. His face crumpled as the memories started coming back. The tea, he whispered. She kept bringing me tea, saying it would help with my stress. And then, everything got fuzzy. I remember her talking about the house, about you, but it was like I was underwater. I couldn't think straight. I held him as he broke down, his body shaking with sobs of rage and betrayal. This strong, kind man who had always tried to see the best in everyone, even his mother, finally facing the truth about who she really was. I'm so sorry, he kept saying. I should have seen it. All these years I should have protected you from her. Hey, I cupped his face in my hands, making him look at me. You have nothing to be sorry for. She's sick, David. This isn't your fault. The police caught up with Patricia 3 days later at her sister's house in Tampa. She'd been planning to flee to the Cayman Islands, where the Williams family had accounts dating back generations. Instead, she was arrested and extradited back to face charges. The evidence was overwhelming, not just from that day, but years of documented harassment, threats, and manipulation. The toxicology reports from David's system, the security camera footage, the illegal entry into our home, the carefully planned attempt to separate us and take control of David's life. Robert Williams finally broke his silence when the full extent of his wife's actions came to light. He filed for divorce and provided even more evidence, years of hidden cameras in their home showing Patricia's escalating behavior, secret recordings of her planning to remove Emma from the picture one way or another. David insisted on pressing charges despite his father's attempts to handle things privately. He testified against his mother at the trial, his voice steady as he described how she'd systematically poisoned him, taking advantage of his trust to drug him into compliance. Patricia was sentenced to 15 years for her crimes. She looked smaller somehow as they led her away, her perfectly maintained facade cracking to reveal the desperate, controlling woman beneath. She couldn't even look at David as she passed him. The aftermath wasn't easy. David needed therapy to process the betrayal, to understand how his mother's manipulation had shaped his entire life. I stood by him through all of it, watching him grow stronger as he untangled himself from the web of control she'd woven around him. We sold the house, too many bad memories, and bought a small farm outside the city, somewhere peaceful where we could build a new life together. Mark and his wife became regular visitors, along with Robert, who was slowly learning how to be a father without Patricia's influence. One evening, about a year after everything happened, David and I were sitting on our new porch, watching the sunset. He turned to me, his eyes clear and present in a way they hadn't been for so long under his mother's influence. You did, didn't you? He asked softly. That's why you kept the house in your name. Why you documented everything. You saw what she was capable of long before any of us did. I nodded, taking his hand. I hoped I was wrong, but I needed to be ready, just in case. He brought my fingers to his lips, kissing them gently. Thank you, he whispered, for being strong enough to fight for us when I couldn't. We sat there in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from orange to purple. Sometimes the worst moments in life lead us exactly where we need to be. Patricia had tried to destroy us, but in the end, she'd only made us stronger. The future stretched out before us, full of possibilities that had nothing to do with control or manipulation. Just love, trust, and the quiet understanding that we would always protect each other. The occasional letter still arrives from the prison. Patricia's attempts to explain, to justify, to manipulate even from behind bars. We don't read them anymore. Instead, they go straight into a file Jennifer keeps, just in case. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you can never be too prepared. But mostly, we focus on building our new life, on healing, on a family we're creating, one built on love and respect, not control and fear. Patricia tried to tear us apart, but she only succeeded in showing us what we're capable of surviving together. And sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and David is sleeping peacefully beside me, I think about that moment on the porch, staring at Patricia's smug face through the security camera. She thought she had won, thought she'd have finally gotten rid of me. She never understood that real love isn't about control. It's about standing together, even when everything is falling apart. That's the lesson we carry forward. That's the story we'll tell our children someday. Not about the darkness we faced, but about the light we found on the other side. Because in the end, love wins. Not the controlling, suffocating love Patricia thought she was showing, but the kind that sets you free, that makes you stronger, that helps you become who you were always meant to be. And that's something worth fighting for.